Alarms screamed through the ship like a wounded animal. Red lights flashed in every quarter, and the floor shook so hard that Captain Park 1 had to grab his chair to stay upright. "What is happening?" he shouted over the noise. Lieutenant's fingers flew across her console. Her face was pale and sweat ran down her forehead. "The jump drive is failing, Captain. We are going off course. I cannot stop it." The ship was the Horizon's Edge, a human exploration vessel sent to map the unknown regions of deep space. It carried 47 crew members, all of them far from home. They had been traveling for 8 months, and everything had gone well until this moment. The ship shook again, harder this time. Through the main window, the stars stretched into long lines of light as they entered an uncontrolled jump. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Stared at her screen. Her hands were shaking. "Captain, we have exited the jump, but I do not know where we are." I stood up and looked at the main window. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Surrounding them were hundreds of ships. They were massive, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls were silver and gold, covered in strange symbols that glowed with blue light. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "We have company," said Doctor of the ships. She had come to the bridge when the alarm started. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed fear. "Those ships are not human." Before anyone could respond, the communication system came to life. A voice spoke in a language no one understood. It was deep and harsh, full of authority. Then, after a moment, the ship's computer translated. "Unknown vessel, you have entered the sacred space of the Empire. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed." One took a deep breath. He had trained for first contact situations, but nothing could truly prepare anyone for this moment. He pressed the communication button. "This is Captain Park, one of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. We are peaceful explorers. Our jump drive failed and we arrived here by accident. We mean no harm." There was silence for a long moment. Then the voice returned, and this time it sounded almost amused. "Humans, we have never heard of your species. You are small and weak, yet you dare to enter our space. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction." One looked at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but also trust. They were waiting for him to decide. "Do as they say," he ordered. "Power down everything. We cannot fight this." Soldiers who boarded the ship were unlike anything the humans had ever seen. They stood over 2 meters tall, with gray skin that looked like stone. Their eyes were bright yellow, and they moved with the grace of predators. They wore armor that seemed to be part of their bodies, and they carried weapons that hummed with energy. The leader of the soldiers was Commander. He walked through the human ship like he owned it, looking at everything with disgust. "These creatures live in such small spaces," he said to his soldiers. "And they are so fragile, look at them. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons at all. How did they even survive on their home world?" Doctor stepped forward. "We survive because we work together. We use our minds to solve problems." Looked down at her. He was almost twice her height. "Your minds? How amusing. The Empire has ruled this region of space for 12,000 years. We have conquered 100 species. Your minds will not save you from our power." Humans were placed in chains and taken aboard a transport ship. Through the windows, they watched as the Horizon's Edge was captured by a tractor beam and pulled along behind them. The journey took 3 days. During this time, the humans were given basic food and water, but no one spoke to them. They were treated like animals being transported to a zoo. Sat next to one in their cell. "Captain, what will happen to us?" "I do not know," he admitted, "but we must stay calm. We must watch and learn. These are powerful, but power is not everything." On the 3rd day, they arrived at Prime, the throne world of the Empire. Even through the small window of their cell, the humans could see its beauty. The planet was covered in cities of crystal and gold. Towers reached into the sky like fingers trying to touch the stars. Ships flew everywhere, thousands of them, showing the incredible size of the Empire's power. Transport landed at the Imperial Palace, a structure so large it could be seen from space. The humans were marched through corridors of polished stone, past statues of ancient rulers, past guards who looked at them with contempt. Finally, they reached the Grand Chamber of Judgment. It was a room as big as a stadium, filled with thousands of and members of other species. All of them turned to look as the humans were brought in. At the far end of the chamber, on a throne made of black crystal, sat Emperor the Eternal. He was old, older than any the humans had seen. His skin was darker gray, almost black, and his eyes burned with ancient power. He had ruled the Empire for over 2,000 years, and in all that time, no one had ever challenged him. The humans were forced to their knees before the throne. Emperor leaned forward and looked at them with curiosity. "So these are the creatures who stumbled into our space, these small, soft, fragile beings." He laughed, and the entire court laughed with him. "Tell me, little humans, why should I not have you executed right now for your trespass?" Captain Park raised his head. Despite his chains, despite his fear, he met the Emperor's eyes. "Because, Your Majesty, we came here by accident. We are explorers, not invaders. And because killing us would tell you nothing about our people. We are the first humans you have met. Do you not want to learn what we are capable of?" The laughter in the court died. Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Capable of?" he repeated. "You are capable of nothing. You are insects compared to us." "Perhaps," one said, "or perhaps not. Only time will tell." A murmur ran through the crowd. No one spoke to the Emperor this way. No one. High Advisor, who stood beside the throne, leaned close to the Emperor and whispered something. Listened, and slowly, a cruel smile spread across his face. "Very well, little human. You want to prove your worth? Then you shall have your chance. I give you the trial of ascension. If you survive, your species will be recognized by the Empire. If you fail, you will die screaming." He waved his hand, and the guards dragged the humans away. Looked at one with terror in her eyes. "What is the trial of ascension?" Doctor answered, her voice heavy with worry. "I do not know, but I think we are about to find out." The doors of the chamber closed behind them with a sound like thunder, sealing their fate. So where they kept the humans was cold and dark. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the only light came from a small window high above. The crew of the Horizon's Edge huddled together for warmth, waiting for news of their fate. Captain Park once sat apart from the others thinking. He had spoken boldly to the Emperor, but now doubt filled his mind. What was the trial of ascension? What had he agreed to? Doctor sat beside him. You did the right thing, Captain. If you had not spoken, they would have killed us already. Maybe, one said, or maybe I have led us to something worse than death. The cell door opened with a loud creak. An official entered, followed by 2 guards. The official was different from the soldiers they had seen before. He was thinner, older, and his eyes held intelligence rather than cruelty. I'm High Advisor, he said. The Emperor has sent me to explain your situation. The humans gathered around, eager to hear. Looked at them with a strange expression. It was not quite respect, but it was not the contempt they had seen in others. The trial of ascension is an ancient ritual, he began. It was created 10,000 years ago when the Empire was young. In those days, many species challenged us for power. The trial was created to give them a chance to prove their worth. If they succeeded, they would be recognized as equals. If they failed, they would be destroyed. Has anyone ever succeeded? Lieutenant asked. The smile was thin. In 10,000 years, 47 species have attempted the trial. None have survived past the second stage. Silence fell over the cell. And the ship's engineer stepped forward. He was a practical man, more interested in machines than politics. What are the stages? There are 3, answered. The first is combat. You must face our champion in the arena of proving. The second is mind. You must pass through the labyrinth of minds where your thoughts and fears will be tested. The third is judgment. You must stand before the Emperor and convince him that your species deserves to exist. And if we refuse, one asked, then you will be executed tomorrow morning. Your ship will be destroyed, and when we find your home world, your entire species will be enslaved. The weight of those words hung in the air. One looked at his crew. He saw fear, yes, but also determination. These were people who had traveled across the galaxy, who had faced the unknown every day. They would not give up easily. We accept the trial, one said. Nodded. I expected nothing less. You have 1 week to prepare for the first stage. Use your time wisely. Turned to leave, then stopped at the door. One more thing, Captain. I have studied many species in my long life. Most of them were stronger than you, faster, more powerful. But there was something in your eyes when you spoke to the Emperor, something I have not seen in a long time. He paused. I wonder if you humans might surprise us all. And he was gone, and the cell door closed behind him. A week passed quickly. The humans were moved to better quarters and given access to food and training facilities. It was clear that they wanted a fair fight. They wanted to prove their superiority through proper trials, not through starvation and weakness. One organized his crew. He assigned tasks based on each person's strengths. Sung, the security officer, led combat training. He had been a soldier before joining the Exploration Corps, and he knew how to fight. We cannot match them in strength, Sung told the crew during one training session. As twice our size and 3 times as strong, but we have something they do not have. What? Asked Omi, a young navigator who had volunteered for the combat team. Endurance, Sung said. Humans are persistent hunters. Our ancestors did not catch prey by being faster or stronger. They chased animals for hours, for days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. We can run longer than almost any creature in the galaxy, and we can take damage that would kill others. He showed them old videos from Earth's history. Humans running marathons, humans surviving terrible injuries, humans fighting on when all hope seemed lost. They expect a quick victory, Sung continued. They expect us to fall in minutes. We will not give them that satisfaction. We will last. We will endure, and when they are tired and confused, we will strike. Meanwhile, Doctor worked on understanding culture. She read everything she could find in the library they were given access to. She learned about their history, their beliefs, their weaknesses. They are proud, she reported to one. Very proud. Their entire society is built on the idea that they are the greatest species in the galaxy. They have never been defeated, never been challenged successfully. That pride is their strength, but it could also be their weakness. How so? One asked. They underestimate everyone. They cannot imagine that a species like us could pose any threat. That makes them careless, and carelessness leads to mistakes. On the night before the first trial, the crew gathered together. They shared a meal, told stories from Earth, and tried to forget, just for a moment, the danger that weighed for them. Sat next to one. Captain, do you think we can really survive this? One was quiet for a long moment. I do not know, he admitted. But I know this, we are human. Our ancestors survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They walked across continents with nothing but their feet. We are the children of survivors. Whatever happens tomorrow, we will face it the same way they did, together. The next morning, the humans were brought to the arena of proving. It was a massive coliseum, larger than any stadium on Earth. The seats were filled with thousands of, and members of other species, all eager to see the entertainment. Emperor sat in a spell box high above the arena, surrounded by his advisors and nobles. High advisors stood beside him, watching with curious eyes. The humans walked into the center of the arena. The crowd roared with laughter and jeers. They threw small objects at the humans, mocking their size and weakness. Then from the opposite gate, their opponent emerged. His name was, and he was not. He was a species that had been conquered by the Empire centuries ago. They were bred for war. Stood 3 meters tall, with 4 arms covered in muscles like steel cables. His skin was red and covered in natural armor plates. His teeth were sharp enough to bite through metal. He had been the champion of the arena for 50 years. He had killed over 300 opponents. He had never lost. Looked at the humans and laughed. It was a terrible sound, like stones grinding together. These are my opponents, he called to the crowd. These tiny creatures, this is an insult. Emperor raised his hand, and the crowd fell silent. Let the trial of ascension begin, he declared. May the strongest survive. Horn sounded and charged. The humans scattered. They had planned for this. They knew they could not face head-on. They had to use the arena, use each other, use everything they had. He was fast for his size, but the humans were faster. They dodged his attacks, rolled under his swings, and led him in circles around the arena. Minutes passed, then an hour, then 2 hours. The crowd grew confused. This was not how battles were supposed to go. Opponents usually died within minutes. But these humans kept moving, kept dodging, kept refusing to fall. Again a slow, sweat poured from his body. His breathing became heavy. He had never fought for this long before. He had never needed to. And the humans kept moving. 3 hours into the battle fell to one knee. His legs were shaking. His 4 arms hung heavy at his sides. What are you?" he gasped. Captain Park stepped forward. He was tired too, but he forced himself to stand straight. "We are human," he said simply, "and we do not quit." Tried to rise, tried to attack one more time, but his body had nothing left. He collapsed face first into the dirt, unconscious. The arena was completely silent. The humans had won. Above, Emperor gripped the arms of his seat so hard that the crystal cracked. His face showed an emotion he had not felt in centuries. Fear. Victory in the arena changed everything. It spread across Prime like fire through dry grass. The small, fragile humans had defeated the unbeatable. Creatures with no claws, no armor, no natural weapons had outlasted the greatest champion the arena had ever known. I refused to believe it. They said the humans must have cheated, must have used hidden technology or poison. But thousands had watched with their own eyes. There was no trick. The humans had simply refused to die. Captain Park 1 and his crew were returned to their quarters, but now they were treated differently. Guards still watched them, but there was a new emotion in their eyes. It was not respect exactly, but it was no longer pure contempt. The crew had 3 days to recover before the second trial. They used every moment. Doctor spent her time researching the labyrinth of minds. The information she found was limited, but what she learned troubled her deeply. It is not a physical maze, she told the crew. It is psychological. The labyrinth uses technology to enter your mind. It finds your deepest fears, your worst memories, your greatest regrets. Then it makes you live through them again and again. Lieutenant's face went pale. That sounds worse than fighting. It is, confirmed. The records show that most species break within the first hour. They lose their sanity. Some never recover, even if they technically survive. And the engineer shook his head. How are we supposed to prepare for something like that? We cannot train our minds the same way we train our bodies. One thought carefully before speaking. We all have fears. We all have pain. The question is not whether the labyrinth will find them. It will. The question is what we do when we face them. He looked around at his crew, at the people he had led across the galaxy. On Earth, there's an old saying, the only way out is through. We cannot avoid our fears. We cannot hide from our pain. We must walk through them. Nod slowly. He understood better than most. He had seen combat on Earth, had lost friends in conflict, had carried guilt for years. The captain is right. Pain is not our enemy. It is part of us. We have survived it before. We will survive it again. On the night before the second trial, one called each crew member to speak with him privately. He wanted to know their fears, their worries, their doubts, not to use against them, but to help them prepare. Came to him last. She sat across from him in the small room, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Captain, I need to tell you something," she said quietly. 3 years ago, before I joined the mission, I made a mistake, a navigation error. It was small, just a few degrees, but it sent a supply ship into an asteroid field. 8 people died because of me. One listened without interrupting. "I have never forgiven myself," continued. "I see their faces every night when I close my eyes. I hear their last transmissions. The labyrinth will find this memory. I know it will, and I am afraid it will destroy me." One reached out and took her hand. "You made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but you did not mean to hurt anyone. You have spent every day since then trying to be better, to never make that error again. That is what makes you human." "But how do I face it? How do I face them?" "You accept it," one said gently. "You accept that it happened, that you cannot change it, that you can only move forward. The dead do not want you to suffer forever. They want you to live, to use your life to help others. Honor them by surviving. Honor them by being the person they would want you to become." The next morning, the humans were taken deep beneath the Imperial Palace. Down and down they went, through corridors carved from black stone, past ancient machines that hummed with strange energy. The labyrinth of minds waited for them at the bottom. It was not what they expected. There was no entrance, no visible structure. Instead, there was simply a large chamber filled with a soft blue light. In the center stood a single figure. The Oracle of was not alive, at least not in the way they understood life. It was an artificial intelligence, created at the dawn of the Empire to administer the trials. It appeared as a shifting form of light, constantly changing shape, never quite solid. "Welcome, humans," the Oracle said. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "You are the 48th species to reach this stage. You will be tested individually. You will face your minds. You will face your souls. Most who enter the labyrinth do not return whole." High Advisor stood to the side, watching with interest. Beside him was Lord, a young noble who had become fascinated by the humans after their victory in the arena. "The rules are simple," the Oracle continued. "You will each enter a separate chamber. There you will face whatever your mind creates. To pass, you must reach the end of your personal labyrinth. There is no time limit. There is no outside help. There is only you and your truth." The crew members looked at each other. This was it. This was the moment that would make or break them. "We will go together," one said. "Not physically, but in spirit. Remember that we are never truly alone. Remember that somewhere the rest of us are fighting the same battle. Let that give you strength." One by one, the humans entered their chambers. The doors closed behind them, sealing them in darkness. For Lieutenant, the darkness lasted only a moment. Then she found herself standing on the bridge of a ship, not the horizon's edge, a different ship, an older ship. Her hands were on the navigation console. Her fingers were entering coordinates, and she knew with terrible certainty what was about to happen. No, she whispered, please not this. But the memory played out anyway. She watched herself make the error. She watched the ship change course. She watched through the main screen as it flew into the asteroid field. She heard the screams. Over and over the memory repeated. Each time she tried to change it, each time she failed, the screams never stopped. Hours passed, or was it days? Time had no meaning here. Fell to her knees, sobbing. I'm sorry, she cried out. I'm so sorry, I cannot change it, I cannot fix it. Please just let me die. The memory paused. The faces of the 8 dead crew members appeared before her. They looked at her with sad eyes. We do not want you to die, one of them said. We never did. Then what do you want? Asked through her tears. We want you to live. We want you to forgive yourself. We want you to know that our deaths were an accident, not a murder. You made a mistake. Humans make mistakes. It is how they learn. Looked up at them. How can I move forward when I carry this weight? You do not drop the weight, another voice said. You learn to carry it. It becomes part of you. It makes you careful, makes you better, makes you someone who will never let others suffer if you can help it. That is how you honor us. Slowly stood. The tears still flowed, but something had changed inside her. The guilt remained, but it was no longer crushing her. It was simply there, a part of her story, a reminder of what she had lost and what she had learned. I will carry you with me, she said to the faces, always. The figures smiled. Then they faded away, and before her a door appeared. She walked through it. Similar battles played out in every chamber. Doctor faced the mentor she had disappointed. Min faced the father he had never reconciled with. Sung faced the soldiers he had lost. One faced his fear of failing his crew. Each of them broke down. Each of them cried, screamed, and begged for mercy. And each of them in the end found the strength to keep moving. It was not easy. It was the hardest thing any of them had ever done. But humans had always known how to carry pain. They had learned it through centuries of struggle, of loss, of survival. When the final human emerged from the labyrinth, 12 hours had passed. The oracle stood silent for a long moment. In 10,000 years, it said finally, no species has ever had all its members complete the trial, until now. Lord stepped forward, his face showing open amazement. They all survived, every single one. They all survived. The young noble did something that shocked everyone watching. He bowed to the humans. I do not know what you are, he said, but you have earned my respect. Above in the imperial palace, Emperor received the news. His face twisted with rage. Impossible, he growled. Absolutely impossible. He turned to his advisors. Move up the final trial. I want this finished tomorrow, and this time there will be no more surprises. The night after the labyrinth was the longest of their lives. The humans sat together in their quarters, exhausted but unable to sleep. The mental trial had drained them in ways the physical combat never could. Each of them had faced their worst demons, their deepest shame, their hidden pain, and somehow they had survived. But there was no time to rest. Emperor had moved the final trial to the next morning. He wanted this finished. He wanted the humans gone. Captain Park once sat apart from the others, studying everything Doctor had gathered about law and tradition. There had to be something they could use, some advantage hidden in the rules. You should sleep, Captain, Doctor said quietly, sitting beside him. Tomorrow will require all your strength. I cannot sleep, one replied. There is something I am missing, some piece of the puzzle that I cannot see. Looked at the document spread before him. What are you searching for? Way to win, not just survive, but truly win. He rubbed his tired eyes. The final trial is supposed to be simple. We stand before the Emperor and make a case for why humanity deserves to exist as equals. But no species has ever convinced him. The trial is designed for failure. Then perhaps we should not play by his rules. One looked at her. What do you mean? Got one of the documents. I have been reading about the history of the Trial of Ascension. It was created 10,000 years ago during the founding of the Empire. At that time, there were many powerful species competing for dominance. The trial was meant to be fair, to give any species a real chance to prove themselves. But the Empire won every time. Yes, but here is what interests me. She pointed to a passage in ancient script. According to the original laws, any species that complete the first 2 trials earned the right to do more than just plead for recognition. They earned the right to challenge. One's eyes widened. Challenge what? The structure of their relationship with the Empire. They can demand to be treated as equals, not vassals. They can claim sovereign status. Has anyone ever tried this? Shook her head. No species has survived to the 3rd trial in over 6,000 years. And even before that, those who reached it were so broken they could only beg for mercy. No one has been strong enough to demand anything. One stood up, his exhaustion forgotten. His mind was racing with possibilities. If we demand sovereignty, what happens? According to the law, the Emperor must either grant it or reject it. But here is the key. If he rejects it without proper cause, he breaks the ancient laws. The same laws that give him the right to rule. He would be trapped by his own system. Smiled. They are proud of their traditions. They believe their laws make them superior to other species. If the Emperor breaks those laws, he loses his claim to legitimacy. The vassal species, the nobles, even his own people would question his authority. One spent the rest of the night preparing. He did not sleep at all. He practiced his words, considered every possible response, planned for every argument the Emperor might make. When morning came, the humans were escorted to the throne room of Prime. The room was even more impressive than the grand chamber of judgment where they had first been presented. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered in murals showing the history of the Empire, battle after battle, conquest after conquest, and everywhere, and vassal species had gathered to witness the final trial. Emperor sat on his black crystal throne, looking down at the humans with cold eyes. High Advisor stood at his right hand. Lord stood among the nobles, his face showing quiet anticipation. You have surprised us, humans, the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. You defeated our champion. You survived the labyrinth of minds. But do not think this earns you any special consideration. Many have come this far. None have convinced me to let them live as equals. A step forward, his crew stood behind him in a line, tired but proud. Your Majesty, one began, we are grateful for the opportunity to speak. Waved his hand dismissively. Speak then. Make your case. Tell me why your pathetic species deserves to exist alongside the Empire. One took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on the next few minutes. I will not beg, he said. The crowd murmured in surprise. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. What did you say? I said, I will not beg. I am not here to plead for mercy or ask for scraps from your table. According to the ancient laws of the trial of ascension, any species that completes the first 2 trials earns the right to challenge. I am here to make that challenge. Silence fell over the throne room. No one moved, no one breathed. Our advisor leaned forward, his eyes bright with interest. The human speaks the truth, Your Majesty. The ancient laws are clear on this matter. Face darkened with rage. You dare to challenge the Empire. I do, one said firmly. I challenge the structure of our relationship. I demand that humanity be recognized not as vassals, not as subjects, but as sovereign equals. The throne room erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted in outrage. Vassal species whispered among themselves. Guards moved toward the humans, weapons ready. But the Emperor raised his hand, and everyone froze. You think you can use our own laws against us, said, his voice low and dangerous. You think you can trick us with words and legal games. I'm not tricking anyone, one replied. I'm simply following the rules that your ancestors created, the rules that you claim make your empire great. If those rules mean nothing, then your empire is built on lies. The words hung in the air like a blade. Gripped the arms of his throne. One could see the conflict in his eyes. The Emperor wanted to destroy the humans, to crush them where they stood, but doing so would prove the humans' point. It would show that law was meaningless when inconvenient. Very well, the Emperor said through clenched teeth. Make your case for sovereignty. Convince me why humanity deserves to stand as our equal, and know that if your argument fails, your death will be slow and painful. One nodded. He turned to face not just the Emperor, but the entire assembly. Look at us and see weakness, he began. Small bodies, no natural weapons, no armor. You wonder how we survived on our own world, let alone reach the stars. I will tell you how. He pointed to his crew. We survive because we work together. 1 human is weak. 100 humans are strong. 1 billion humans are unstoppable. We do not fight alone. We never have. Took a step forward. Your empire is 12,000 years old. You have conquered 100 species. You rule through fear and tradition. But look around you. Look at the faces of your vassal species. Do you see loyalty, or do you see resentment? Do you see allies, or do you see slaves waiting for their chance to rebel? Vassal species in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some of them nodded slightly at his words. Humanity is different, one continued. We do not conquer, we connect. We do not enslave, we cooperate. Our greatest achievements did not come from domination, but from working together with others who were different from us. He looked directly at Emperor. Your empire is powerful, but it is stagnant. You have not grown in, you have not changed. You are so proud of your past that you cannot imagine a different future. And you can, sneered. Yes, one said simply, because that is what humans do. We change, we adapt, we grow. 100 years ago, we had not even left our own planet. Now we are here, standing in the heart of your empire, using your own laws to challenge your throne. Imagine what we will do in another 100 years, another 1,000. The throne room was completely silent now. Even the Emperor seemed uncertain how to respond. You can kill us, one said. You can destroy our ship and hunt down our home world, but you cannot kill what we represent. The idea that small, weak, fragile creatures can stand against the mighty, that courage matters more than size, that determination matters more than power. He stepped back and stood with his crew. We are human, and we are ready to be your equals. The question is, are you brave enough to accept us? The silence stretched on. The Emperor stared at the humans, his ancient eyes unreadable. And slowly, Lord stepped forward from the crowd of nobles. I support their claim, he said loudly. The humans have earned the right to sovereignty under our own laws. To deny them would make our laws meaningless. Another noble stepped forward, then another, then representatives of 3 vassal species joined them. The cracks in the Empire's unity were showing. The Emperor could see it. If he refused the humans now, he risked rebellion. But if he accepted them, he would be admitting that his empire was no longer supreme. Our advisor whispered in his ear once more. Whatever he said made the Emperor close his eyes in frustration. When opened them again, his face was a mask of controlled fury. Very well, he said, each word like a knife. Humanity is granted sovereign status. You are recognized as equals under law. One allowed himself a small smile. Thank you, Your Majesty. Do not thank me, replied coldly. You have made an enemy today, human. The Empire will be watching you. And when you fall, and you will fall, we will be there to crush whatever remains. You would expect nothing less, one said, but I think you will find that humanity is full of surprises. The days that followed the Emperor's declaration were strange and uncertain. Humans were no longer prisoners, but they were not exactly welcome either. They were given quarters in a section of the palace reserved for diplomatic guests. Servants brought them food and clean clothes. Guards still watched them, but now it was protection rather than imprisonment. Captain Park 1 used this time to negotiate the terms of humanity's new status. There were countless details to work out. Trade agreements, communication protocols, territorial boundaries. The work was exhausting, but one knew that every detail mattered. Our advisor handled most of the negotiations on the side. He was a difficult opponent, always looking for advantages, always testing the limits of what the humans would accept. But there was also a strange respect between him and one. You are clever for a human, said during one late-night session. You used our own laws against us. The Emperor is still furious about that. I meant no disrespect to your laws, one replied. I simply wanted fairness. It a sound that might have been a laugh. Fairness, such a human concept. We do not think much about fairness. We think about power, about control, about winning. And where has that gotten you? The question seemed to catch off guard. He was quiet for a long moment before answering. We have built the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known. We have brought order to chaos. We have survived for 12,000 years. Yes, one agreed. But have you grown? Have you changed? Have you become better? Had no answer to that. Lord became an unexpected ally during this time. The young noble had been changed by what he witnessed during the trials. He sought out the humans often, asking questions about their home world, their history, their culture. You fascinate me, he admitted to Doctor one evening. My whole life, I was taught that they were superior to all other species, that we had nothing to learn from anyone else, but watching you, I wonder if that is true. Every species has something to teach, replied, and something to learn. That is what makes the universe interesting. Not slowly. When you return to your home world, I would like to accompany you, if you would allow it. I want to see humanity for myself. I want to understand what makes you different. You would be welcome, said with a smile. Though I warn you, Earth is very strange compared to Prime. I look forward to it. Not everyone was pleased with the new arrangement. Many saw the humans as a threat, an infection that needed to be eliminated before it could spread. These voices were loudest among the military, who had spent their entire careers believing in supremacy. Mander, the officer who had first captured the human, was among the most vocal critics. This is madness, he said during a council meeting. These creatures defeat one tired champion and walk through a mental maze, and suddenly they are our equals. They should have been executed the moment they entered our space. The law is clear, Lord responded. They completed the trial of ascension. They earned their status. The law is outdated. It was written for a different time when we face real threats. These humans are nothing. Give me one fleet and I will erase their species from the galaxy. Emperor listened to the debate in silence. His face revealed nothing of his thoughts, but when finished speaking, the Emperor raised his hand. Enough, he said. The decision has been made. Humanity is recognized as sovereign. We will honor our laws. Started to protest, but the Emperor silenced him with a look. However, continued, the commander makes a valid point. These humans are young and untested. They have proven themselves in controlled trials, but the galaxy is not a controlled environment. Time will tell if they truly deserve their status. Until then, we will watch. We will wait, and if they prove themselves unworthy, we will act. It was not a promise of friendship. It was a warning, but it was enough for now. Weeks after the final trial, the Horizon's Edge was returned to the humans. The ship had been repaired and even upgraded with some technology. It was a gesture of respect, though also perhaps a reminder of power. The entire crew gathered in the ship's main hall for a final briefing before departure. We have achieved something incredible, Captain One said to his people. We came here by accident, expecting to die. Instead, we have changed the balance of power in this region of the galaxy. Humanity is now recognized as a sovereign species. Our people have a seat at the table. Lieutenant stood near the front, her face showing a mixture of pride and exhaustion. The labyrinth had changed her. She was quieter now, more thoughtful, but she was also stronger. What happened next, Captain? She asked. We go home, One replied. We report everything we have learned. We prepare our people for what is coming, because make no mistake, this is not the end. It is only the beginning. He looked around at his crew, at the faces of the men and women who had survived impossible odds. They will be watching us. They expect us to fail. They expect us to prove that we are unworthy of equality. Our job is to prove them wrong, not through war or conquest, but through growth, through cooperation, through being exactly what they are not. And the engineer raised his hand. Captain, do you really think we can compete with an empire that has existed for 12,000 years? Pete, no, One smiled. We will not try to be better than them. We will be human. We will build alliances where they build empires. We will create partnerships where they create vassals. We will offer friendship where they offer domination. He walked to the main window and looked out at the stars. The galaxy is vast. There are countless species out there who have been crushed under rule, who have been told they are inferior, who have given up hope. We will find them. We will work with them. And together, we will create something new. Me, the young navigator, stepped forward. When do we leave, Captain? One turned back to face his crew. Now, plot a course for Earth. It is time to go home. Horizon's Edge lifted off from Prime and headed toward the stars. From the palace, High Advisor watched it go. Beside him stood Lord, ready to board a transport that would follow the human ship. Do you think they will exceed? Asked. It was quiet for a long moment. I think, he said finally, that we have underestimated them from the beginning, and I think we may continue to underestimate them for a very long time. Is that concern in your voice, High Advisor? Perhaps, turned away from the window, or perhaps it is hope. The Empire has been stagnant for. We have become comfortable in our power, lazy in our dominance. Perhaps we need something to wake us up. Perhaps we need a challenge. And you think the humans can provide that? Almost smiled. I think the humans can provide many things we do not expect. Whether that is good or bad for the Empire remains to be seen. In the throne room, Emperor sat alone on his crystal seat. His ancient eyes stared at nothing. His hands gripped the armrests with force that would have crushed stone. Humans, he whispered to the empty room. Small, weak, fragile humans. He had ruled for 2,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. Nothing had ever truly challenged him. Until now, humans had used his own laws against him. They had exposed the cracks in his empire. They had proven that power was not everything. And for the first time in centuries, Emperor the Eternal felt uncertain about the future. Far away, racing toward a small blue planet called Earth, the crew of the Horizon's Edge looked forward with hope. They had stumbled into an empire and challenged its throne. They had faced trials of body, mind, and politics. They had won against impossible odds. They were human, and they were just getting started.